Welcome to another edition of Roll Route, the program where we gather every day at this time. Well, we do it Monday through Friday anyway. And what we do when we gather is continue to address the issues between food production and food consumption. Andrew Henderson still being chased around the United Kingdom. Jay Truitt just probably stationary in Texas. Nothing else to say
Yeah,
about that.
not too much right
It's
the last
unusual
week
to
or
have
so.
Jay's normally gallivanting all over America, and today he's back home.
Yeah,
Maybe he
I
fancied
it's
a bit
like
of pie.
3 weeks in a row that I've
I
actually
know.
been here on a Tuesday. I am leaving this week. I'm going to go somewhere else. So
I think actually it's my third week in a row, maybe more to be here on a Tuesday.
you know what?
No,
You may have to hit the road though. I found this out too, Trent. You may have to leave soon, or your wife will realize just really who you really are.
no, no, there's no issue
And
because see, before that happens, she always has my bag packed and it's in the
yeah,
pickup, and she
just
says,
sitting somewhere, and she's scheduled an appointment for you
wherever
in
you're going, it's
Miles
time.
City, Montana, or something,
Yeah,
right?
right. Go check out the
Yeah,
Buck and Bull sale, but the Buck and Bronx sale,
yeah, right. Yeah.
which by the way
No,
is coming up in May, the Miles
it
City
is.
Don't
Bucking
say that
Horse
too
sale.
quickly. Don't say that.
You'll
Don't say that too
probably uh,
quickly.
Well,
you'll
I,
probably see my old buddy CJ Oakwood at that.
I don't think CJ's getting out much anymore. She
Not
just stays
anymore.
hunkered down in Reno. What do you mean I can't say go to the Miles City May Bucking Horse sale, Andrew, fast?
Sorry. The main fucking
Well,
horse sale. Okay,
yeah.
that's good.
So,
That
s-
you onomatopoeia, I think they call that. You're good at it. I know you're very good at that.
Hmm.
I get your point though, and
I know you
there's
do. I
probably
mean, he can't see swear words the way I can, but I can see a swear word in there.
it is also true though that while all the people that are at the bucking horse sale, there's likely to be a spouse at home somewhere that's pronouncing that sale differently. Um,
Yeah. Are you going
That
to
is
that?
a
Are
true
you
story.
going? Are you going to that fucking horse sale again?
Yeah.
Yes, I can
yeah,
hear it. I can hear it. I can hear it.
yeah,
I can hear it. And he
yeah.
goes,
Oh, sure, you were at the bucking horse sale.
yeah. See?
Yeah,
That's
there's a
funny.
lot of
How long have you
angles to
been with
that.
that fucking horse sale this week? How many
I'm
days is
with
that fucking horse sale on?
Um,
But anyway,
Andrew, your audio could be better. I don't know if there's anything you can do to fix that, but it's
yeah,
different than it
but
was when we started.
I'm
Anyway,
how many bucking
I'm in the
horses do we need is also going to be a question, right?
I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere, and I don't know where. I can't help you. But there you go.
Yeah.
well, at least we can say that Andrew's been to a legitimate bucking horse event.
Yeah.
I have. Was it legitimate though? That's a
Oh,
very good question. I'd have to ask.
well, yeah, absolutely legitimate. It was people got hurt, and there was a winner and losers, and you weren't one of them, so it was all good
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call that a win.
when you didn't get hurt, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. When I saw
So,
what they put themselves through there, I was like, wow. Hmm. Anyway,
Jay,
When I was much well, I just want to point out when I was much younger, I had a little cold back mare that really it was my own corral was a bucking event pretty much every morning about 5:20.
how long did it take to warm her up?
Uh about 7 good jumps.
See, I know a lot of cowboys that always tell me I got to get those $7 out of her, and then she's good to go. I'm like, don't you have
Yeah.
one that doesn't buck the first 45 minutes?
Yeah. No, we had plenty of them. I thought I would, some horses you can break of that and some you can't. She was one that you couldn't. But you
Well,
just had to know you put your second foot in the stirrup and the world was going to come alive. It's kind of like having a shot of adrenaline first thing in the morning, honestly. It'll set you
yeah.
up for the rest of
It,
the day. But
my determination
well,
is it matters how far back in
getting on a
in the
bucking
pedigree
mare,
Blue Valentine is.
yeah,
getting
right. Yeah,
getting on a
exactly.
so a shot of adrenaline is getting on a bucking mare in at what time in the morning?
About
Six
5:10,
daylight,
5:15.
daylight.
Uh,
Yeah. whatever daylight was, a little before.
All right, on to other matters. Jay, we
Yeah.
have to address this because you've spent so much time and still have one leg in Missouri despite living
Mm-hmm.
in Texas. But I had a plethora of people contact me yesterday that Missouri was enacting a new bill, a law that would eliminate homeschoolers from possessing firearms because it would not be considered a gun free zone. So I got a hold of a senator, Curtis Gregory, to be honest, and
Mm-hmm.
Curtis
Okay.
sent me a letter that Mark Ellinger, the attorney and a non-biased attorney, third-party attorney in Jefferson City, evaluated Senate Bill 727, which is mostly tied to, as I read through it, it's mostly tied to how funds are going to be dispersed to not only public schools but also charter schools and what a charter school actually is. But I wanted to bring it up again and talk about it in greater detail because, man, in today's world, people get a little taste of blood and they're like a pig wanting more. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just incredible how a hint of something hits the internet and people are like, if you homeschool, they're going to take your guns away.
Yeah. And
That's
it's
not
not
the
at
case
all.
in Missouri.
I saw another. I'll look for it so that I can send you somebody else that had done a really. It was somebody that I kind of trusted their perspective. Um, that had done that same analysis, right, from a different direction, looking at
Mm-hmm.
it, and just said, no, that's nonsense, right? I mean, it's even beyond the realm of being able to really make the connection. And I'll have to admit, I didn't read the bill myself, but I did read the analysis that got sent out and the summary that Legal Scan put together, Legiscan in the state of Missouri. It's I have a system right that tracks those in a bunch of different states, and so I get to see the little summaries and uh, yeah, I couldn't even see in the section components where people put all that together. The bill's really a
No,
tax
I
credit bill
couldn't either.
for elementary education, and it's about how homeschoolers might be able to access some of those tax credits
Which
in
I'm opposed to,
reality.
by the way. I'm not a
Well,
homeschooler anymore, but I'm opposed to that. And the homeschoolers need to think about that. And I know they do. That if you start taking funds from the state, you're also going to be told what to teach.
yeah, I so the so there's kind of two perspectives on that, right? I hear the same argument once in a while about we should freeze senior citizens' property taxes and we should do this, that, and the other, right? I My generic feeling about it, and this applies to the income tax code at the federal level or state level or anything else. Listen to you, the point that you just made. Once you begin to carve out and divide what people do in the tax code, you're favoring someone somewhere. And you're doing that for a purpose that is government's interest, not your interest. And they will
You mean
convince you
like
that it's, yeah, they will
you mean like
convince you
paying
that
off
it's your
people's student?
interest, but not. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
So
Andrew.
no, no, no. I totally agree with you. I mean, it's just like Biden paying off the student loan debts of people. You know,
Yeah,
people who are
absolutely.
potentially in a very privileged position because they get an education that you know, certainly in the UK, and I'm assuming it's the same in the US. The more education you get, the more earning potential, on average, is shown to be given to you in your
Yeah.
future. Um,
I'm not
so
sure that's the
let's
case anymore, but I know the premise.
okay. Well, it certainly was the case here. I'm not sure whether it
Hmm.
is now, but it certainly was. That's maybe because too many people go to further education now that maybe shouldn't.
Correct.
But that's another issue.
It is.
But you know what's really interesting about this forgiving student loan situation is I wonder how those, I'm going to call them adolescent young adults, I wonder how they're going to feel when they're drafted for World War III by Mr. Biden. What's your thoughts
You,
on that?
well, first of all, you told us just yesterday that World War III wasn't going to happen. It was just a big game.
I just, first of all, I'm going to just say this to you. That doesn't stop people being drafted if it's
Mm-mm.
if it's uh, if it's out there as a possibility. The fact that I don't think it'll happen doesn't mean to say people will be not. Look, thousands of people that are nothing to do with you, Trent, have already been conscripted into this war that's been funded by America and to a lesser extent the United Kingdom. Ukrainians have been conscripted into this war.
Yeah. We got to go to a break. We will pick it up right there when we get back with more Roll Route. Andrew Henderson, Jay Truitt, Trent Loos. I got to remind you about NO2U, nitric oxide, NO2U.com. Dr. Nathan Brandt is the foremost authority on healthy living from a cardiovascular standpoint. And it's not just one thing, but if your baseline on nitrates is not correct, you are going to have an uphill battle. Get more details and order at NO2U, NO number 2 letter U.com. We're back with the second leg of the journey. Like we're going to have 4 legs of the journey, just like the bucking horses at Miles City. More after this. Back in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. Roll Route, Trent Loos alongside Andrew Henderson in center field. He's coming to us from the UK. Jay Truitt on the right of your viewing, or you're listening.
Yeah,
either
kind
one.
of like I see you on the left now. Now that you've got your allegiances to the presidential candidates, I think you're sitting well on the left. To be honest, Trent.
I have no idea what you just said, nor am I going to inquire.
Well, I did, and I know Jay got it. But anyway, I want your views on this. Do you not think that we have seen people conscripted into this war? It might not be our citizens, but we've paid for it.
Well, we're paying for a lot of things, or our grandkids are paying for a lot of things that I don't agree with. So it's just that era of time. But we're not drafting people in the United States today.
Yeah, we don't know where our money's being used for in most of the cases, honestly. I'm not saying that to be defensive about it. That's a different discussion. That's probably a whole show in itself, right? Auditing government spending across the board, name the subject matter. No, I don't know that I completely buy into the whole idea that we're part of the subscription of people in Ukraine or Russia, either one. People are being subscripted, probably, yeah. I mean the same, but that terminology, if you're not careful, right, becomes a little bit of a double-edged sword, just from the perspective that a lot of countries worldwide have obligations of service for citizens and can be recalled at any time. That's part of their standing army kind of thing, right? A draft is a subscription.
Actually, to Andrew's point, is there a country that doesn't do that?
I don't know.
I don't know of one. But there may well be some.
Well, there probably are. There's probably some countries that just I would say probably Switzerland operates in that mode, and they do because they have a unionized service, right? And et cetera. And so there probably are some other countries besides them that have unions that represent their military, or it's basically unionized service opportunities, maybe. But
our defense minister is already talking about conscription and requirements for conscription in the United Kingdom. I just believe that that's going to be the next discussion, and it's very worrying because, as you say, Trent, I don't think we'll get to World War III, but I certainly think that the majority of politicians want us to get there.
Well, the United States is running behind on enlistment and reenlistment ratios. Now I was trying to think when it started. I think, we started it when we started vaccination mandates inside the system, and that actually started limiting services.
Not
only.
And
you never replaced the ones that were kicked out either, did you?
Well, we did offer a bunch of them their job back.
Right.
I don't know any personally that took that offer.
I don't. I've talked to people that thought about it,
Mhm.
that left as a result of that, but they did not go back. They'd already replaced that
Right.
income somewhere else, and their families were resettled. So
Yeah, because those that we lost during that period were people who had a tremendous amount of experience and just were
oh
not
yeah,
going to comply with, and it was a major loss to our military. And not that there's
yeah,
anything wrong with a young recruit, but you become
no,
a high-ranking officer because of your experience and your diligence. And when you start at ground zero as a greenhorn, you don't have that yet.
yeah.
Well,
The
have you heard of have you heard of Dr. Rainer Fulneck? He was the guy that the Germans put in prison for questioning the vaccines and the long-term results of the COVID vaccines. He said that the initial papers, which showed myocarditis and cancers and various other things, were only the tip of the spear. That if we went beyond 2022 to 2023, 24, 25, we'd start to see a complete meltdown of people's health. And he was put in jail for that. Rainer Fulner, he's American citizen as well as a German citizen. Anyway, I don't know whether he's resurfaced. They've let him out of jail, and he's now bringing more data that he's obviously gathered from his freedom, his alliance that he has with doctors, and he's suggesting that the correlation line is that within 5 years, anybody that took the vaccines, um, 1 and 2, he didn't even say the booster. Anybody that took those vaccines will in fact be sterilized by the COVID vaccines. There's
whew,
evidence to
boy, that
suggest.
lets me off the hook.
Well, there's evidence to. It's but it's not funny, is it? Because if
Yeah,
there's
Hey,
any truth
honey,
in
it,
that,
it is.
honey,
It
you're
is funny
safe.
from
yeah,
Jay's standpoint,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
honey,
it's
you're
not
it
funny
safe.
is.
for all of
It is.
those kids that just did it
No,
No,
without knowing.
yeah,
yeah, it's a very serious thing, and he's this right. You want to see it? He's showing this trajectory that's basically showing that for a short period of time they are somewhat fertile, but it's rapidly decreasing because of this spike protein that replicates itself within the body system and makes your immune system work over hard. So I'm like, at the end of the day, we are looking at a very serious situation when it then comes to people being able to have the health and the fitness to fight for their freedom.
That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of public health, though. I mean, I am not
Yeah.
poo-pooing in any way, shape, or form what you said. But with what's happening
Well, I
and
don't
the
know whether it's
massive
true. I don't know
fentanyl
whether
and,
it's
and
true.
illegal illicit drug use that's taking place, there's so many contributing factors to, well, I have it on firsthand authority. What's happening in hospitals with newborns is just pretty scary. The number of 2-pound babies that are born in very bad situations all across this country.
You don't even need to go there, Trent. Are you guys aware of how many soccer players have dropped with cardiac arrests in Europe over the last 3 weeks?
No, I have no clue.
17.
no.
17. These are professionals.
I
17.
can tell you though that 8 Tyson chicken plants and 1 pork plant have gone down in the last 12 months. That's
Yeah,
concerning.
Wow.
yeah.
But they've gone down because of reduction in intake of meat or because they've
No,
moved
not
their
at
meat
all. I
production
mean, our
somewhere else.
consumption of chicken continues to increase, and
Yeah.
yet Tyson, the largest chicken provider in the United States, has shut down 8 chicken plants in the last 12 months and 1 pork plant.
Yeah,
Somebody's
I
Is
think
that
got
it,
to
because
stop and
they're
say, "Hey,
old
what's going
plants
on
that are
here?"
not as efficient? Are they old plants that aren't as efficient as their new plants or something like that?
yeah, no, listen though, right? No, I mean, to your original point, we haven't even had a, a steady, we've had an increasing consumption of poultry in the United States since Moses served in Congress. And I mean, like almost from the very beginning of the modern industry when it occurred, it popped up and they've increased at least 5% a year. Their growth rate's been it's consistent. You can't not measure it. And the plant, if you look at the plants that closed, I kind of share Trent's concern on this, and I'm not very good at the whole meat industry conspiracy concepts, but something is truly kind of weird that the leading player in the industry is shutting down plants that, by any outsider's viewpoint, should have still had another 10 years or so left in them
Well,
before they even had to modernize them
Well,
again, right? So,
especially when you find out that they're opening up 5 new plants solely for the production of insects. So
yeah,
Tyson Foods. So that is quite worrying. But my question to you, Trent, is that it's a bit like the electric car argument. If nobody wants them and nobody buys them, eventually Ford, Mercedes, and BMW.
Electric cars are
say,
nothing like chicken. People are still buying chicken at the
No.
same rate they were. People are not buying electric cars. But
Yeah.
I have,
Whoa,
I have you can whoa me, and when we come back with the second half of the journey, the second leg is complete. We'll go to the third leg of the Barking Horse Sale show here today on Roll
Bingo.
Route with Andrew Henderson, Jay Truitt. Before I turn you loose, let's talk about beef. There is still a commitment from the Certified Piedmontese crew to generate 100% Great Plains cattle into locally grown beef. No importation here. This is all local producers working with the resources available to produce. And if you want grass-fed, that's available as well. What you can be assured of is that it will be tender. More details about how you do not need to go to the store. We deliver the tender beef to your door at cpbeef.com. Second half, roll right just ahead. We'll start with whoa, which is perfect for a horse race.
Yeah. Trent, I'm with you on that. But what I'm trying to say
back
is
in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. Roll Route, Trent Loos alongside Andrew Henderson, rule breaker, trying to talk about the topic during the break. Jay Truitt. All right.
whoa,
Jay.
I'm saying you're right. I'm saying that they can build whatever they want in terms of bug plants. People are still going to want chicken. So somebody else is going to fill that gap, aren't they? Are they not?
Yeah. I wanted to make one other point because I've been in this facility several times. The oldest operating packing plant of any species in the United States is the old John Morrell plant, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is currently owned by Smithfield Foods, based out of China. But this plant was built in 1909. So for somebody to tell me that a plant is just out of date and can't function anymore efficiently, I don't buy it. There's something else going on, and that's the discussion.
Yeah, I tend to agree too. And I mean, I spent a lot of time in my life crawling around packing plants that were introducing new modernization right inside them, and almost never do they have to destroy the structure or close down the structure to do that, right? I mean, it's in some cases they have to add cooler space or something like that, but most of the time what they actually do is shrink the space that they're using, right? Not expand it, really, or they expand capacity of the plant by modernizing it with the systems and the equipment in place. And we've been doing that. I mean, so maybe that's not the case anymore, but we've been doing it that way for to the point you just made about the old Morel plant. It's kind of since like the 60s and 70s, right?
Jay, can you imagine building this plant in 1909? That's incredible. I don't even want to tell you, Jay, that John C. Morrell moved to Sioux Falls from England to build that plant.
Right.
Yeah. Did he really?
Yeah, he did. I actually have his hometown in England.
I bet he got a shock some February morning when he woke up and it was about 23 degrees below zero, right? And he's thinking that I mean, it's colder than any place in the United Kingdom
Bradford. He was from
realm.
Bradford, England.
Huh?
Well, he'll be pleased he left. That's all I can
Yeah.
say. He would
Yeah.
not he would not
Good
he
call.
would not reckon it was a very good call. Temperature or no temperature, he will be very, very pleased he no longer lives in Bradford. He would be in a minority of one.
He started his
Huh?
meatpacking business in Bradford, England in 1827. So it was his family that moved from England to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. 1909. And this plant, I have wanted to do, and I've issued requests, although not for 5 years, because it continually just turned me down. I have wanted to do a little documentary about this facility because it's still functioning. It's built in 1909. It was, even in the heyday, it was so unique because as it was first built, they did pigs on the top floor, sheep on the second floor, cattle on the third floor. It still has 3 floors and 3 levels. They don't do anything but pigs anymore. But it was such a unique specimen. It's got such a rich history. And do you think those Gestapos will let me come and do a story about it? I can do a story about it, but nobody will participate with me. There's so much there to be told about that facility.
So
no.
hang on. Is there no truth in what I've heard? I don't know where I've heard this, but I want you two guys to tell me whether I'm right. Isn't this a way of them taking out a workforce, moving to another area so that they can now employ people that have come from other countries at a cheaper rate? Is that not part of this, or is that not true?
I believe that to be true, but we don't really know. They've denied it.
Yeah.
But what they can't deny,
Yeah.
well, what they can't deny is that 7% of their stock is owned by BlackRock, and that Larry Fink is the head of one of these organizations that is bringing these illegals in. And so you could see where this discussion would take place and why there's more than just some rumor happening here.
Yeah. And Jay, do you see that being a possibility, or do you think that's hogwash?
So I think about this whole discussion that I've read quite a bit about people that are looking at this, trying to take people out of the workforce so that they become codependent on something else, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of there's a core problem with that, right? And this goes back to our discussion about the military, right? But one of the things that you come to learn to understand when you're in the military, and especially when you're in leadership in the military, is that idle hands make for the devil's work. And if you're in government, I don't think you want a bunch of people that are just unemployed. People have to be about something, even if you're paying for everything to them. If you look at crime statistics in the United States, they tend to be higher in unemployed neighborhoods where unemployment is higher. And so, again, I kind of, and that gets that, there's a critical mass when it comes to things like that. And once you get to a certain point, people just, now we're talking about not chaos, we're talking about anarchy. And that's a different, that's crossed the bridge that the extreme left doesn't want. They don't want anarchy.
Let's segue to that. So when you have Palestinians stopping the traffic in and out of major cities, protesting on behalf of Gaza and Iran, frankly, what do you, I ask a question. I saw yesterday that weren't people not allowed to get in and out of Chicago for 5 hours? Same thing happened on the Golden Gate Bridge in California. How far is this going to go? Because I can assure you, if that was another type of demonstrator, they'd be off that bridge in seconds.
Yeah.
Is that not true?
So listen, right? I mean, I don't want this to be like another distraction from the conversation, but we've proven with the J6 process, right? The prosecutions have taken place in J6 versus what happened with Black Lives Matter, that the judicial system is biased, right? That's that
Well, that's just
that
one
dis-
example, isn't it?
well, but it's plenty enough of an example, right? I mean, it's like a blatant, glaring in your face example. We've yet to prosecute, that I'm aware of, the first true blue Antifa person um, for sedition or any of the remote crimes that people are. I mean, the J6
No,
folks
you're
were
right.
all effectively misdemeanor offenses and are doing double digit prison terms now in some cases for that.
Some
So
of them are doing more prison
that
terms than
that
actual
discussion's moot.
manslaughter.
My point though, Andrew, is still back to what kind of started that comment from you. I think though is so even in the case of like the protest that's taking place, that really is still a fairly small number of people. The discussion at large here is what happens when we start putting, let's say, um, what is the difference between having 8% of the population unemployed and unable to find work, right? I mean, truly unable to find work versus 25%. We
It's
still have the
huge.
same, yeah, we still have the same, and forget about the tax revenues and government being able to operate and all those sorts of things. Just what happens with the mindset of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the
Well,
mindset of people
yeah,
becomes something like literally new government now kind of thing. Not
well,
we're
do you
not
know what?
nobody waits till November, right? They want it
I,
now.
I heard somebody yesterday describing in New York that now look, I'm probably getting my figures wrong, but I just want it that somebody who works for the federal government in New York compared to in the commercial world in New York will earn a third more working for the government on average.
Huh.
Wow,
I don't
those
dispute that.
statistics.
No way do I. I
Those
do not
statistics.
dispute that in any way, shape, or form. I
Well,
do
that
take
is
I do take
that
issue
has
though,
to be it.
Andrew. I take issue
Sorry.
with something clogging up all in and out of Chicago for 5 hours. I know Chicago fairly well, and I don't know what that means exactly.
There's about
Oh, they
70
closed
ways
it.
into Chicago,
Yeah, right,
No,
exactly.
right?
they closed it. But they closed the main road into Chicago both ways was
Yeah.
shut for 5 hours.
But
Both ways.
the
From
Interstate
O'Hare
94.
Airport.
What road? Lakeshore Drive.
Well, it was the one that linked straight to O'Hare Airport because they were explaining that there were real issues with people on emergency, going on
Yeah.
emergencies to hospitals. They couldn't actually get the ambulances through, so
I
they shut it for
I'm kind of
5 hours.
I'm kind of like
Uh,
Trent, right?
I,
I mean, most
something
of the
doesn't add up.
time, here's what I think actually happens most of the time in those cases. The media inflame and blow up and like show
Mm-hmm.
that imagery in such a way that it appears to be like the end of all civilization in that area because they
Okay,
need to
okay.
ramp this to the greatest extent. They want, I
Although
mean, the
that
media,
wouldn't be in their interest, would it? That wouldn't be in
yeah,
their interest in this.
no, but it would. It would actually. Because
Okay.
they want everybody to believe that most of America is on the side of the Palestinians here, right? And that most
Okay.
of America is doing something else. I actually think, honestly, I think that even though Biden has kind of waffled a little bit on both angles of every angle of the Israeli-Palestinian issue, and even now the Iranian Israeli issue. Um, the truth is, I think he failed the test that the media set up for him to pass, and that's why you see them now increasingly starting to kind of walk
Mm.
off and turn their back on him a little bit. The mainstream media
Yeah.
is going to let him dry out.
Well, he is
If
not going to
Donald
pass.
Trump,
He is not going to pass any test that comes his way. Trust me, he just has no ability
well,
to
but
do that. We got to take a break. Simpson Farm Enterprises from Hayes, Kansas. With their Apache sprayers, continue to make innovation and reliability when it comes to maintaining pest in your field a priority. And we are at that time of year. How are you going to control weeds, plants out of place? How are you going to control insects and possibly even apply some fertilizer? SimpsonFarm.com with full details. If you're north of Nebraska, High Plains, Apache.com. It's all about service, and nobody does it better. We're back with the last leg of the journey. Roll route right after this.
Hey guys, it's really strange. There's three vehicles now parked where I was parked. You know when I was in trouble?
Back in 3,
It's
2,
really,
1.
really
Welcome
strange.
back. Roll route. Trent Loos alongside Andrew Henderson, Jay Truitt. And I want to give you an example just to let you know how much of a romantic I am. One year, I took Kelly to Chicago for our anniversary. There was an animal rights convention in town that I wanted to attend, and so we created
for your anniversary. Wait, no. For your anniversary, you went to an animal rights convention.
Correct. And she had a fake
Go ahead,
identity. She attended. This is before Wayne Pacelli was the CEO of the Humane Society of the United States. So it was a while ago. But she gathered tremendous information because they didn't know who she was. I was there as me, and that was fun. But the reason I'm walking through this is that night included protesting the local establishments that served veal, because this whole meeting was about anti-veal. And so they had TV cameras and the news crew and everybody was there filming these activists going into Kelly Loos was filmed as an activist going into these restaurants and protesting serving veal. There were 25 people involved. I was standing on the outside watching and watch how all this was taking place. When the news showed it and they made it appear on the news, it appeared as though half of Chicago was part of this protest. There were 25 people. Yeah. That's it.
Right. Yeah. No,
and it's with AI now. They need 8 people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They could do it with AI.
Yeah, I think we surely by now most of the people in the country have come to realize that what they see is not real.
No, I don't agree with that.
I mean, and maybe not.
I don't think that awareness exists.
It's a growing percentage. It has to be, and
it is a growing percentage because most people are starting to question things.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give it to you. I don't.
I mean, if you're at 5%, it's growing.
That's true. But there's that's true, right? So I think perspective matters always, right? And I'm a short guy, right? So everything seems taller to me, right?
Wait a minute. We're in the context of being aware of all of the fraud in the world. You portray that you're a tall guy?
No, when numbers are climbing, they look bigger to me.
The thing is, why do short guys always want to tell you they're short? I've never understood that.
Hey, listen, it's an obvious fact in my case, right? It's kind of we laugh, and I mean my family tree is about 2 generations away from a Ringling Brothers act, and somewhere. So, there's no more Ringling Brothers. That's kind of sad. That's a sad story now. But
I'm looking at that shirt you're wearing today, and I'm thinking, there's a bit of Oompa Loompa in you there, to be honest.
No, this is it could be.
A bit of what? A bit of Oompa Loompa.
It's a Willy Wonka reference.
Oh,
right?
My goodness. You got to stop living through Hollywood productions, Andrew.
Oompa Loompa. You don't know what an Oompa Loompa is.
Well, now I do. It's something to do with a chocolate factory.
It's a country buried on some foreign place. Yeah.
They're the little guys that make all the chocolate bars.
Yeah, right.
That make all the chocolate bars. They've got orange shirts and green skin.
Yeah.
And funny colored hair.
Duly noted.
Funny colored hair. Right. Yeah.
Did you ever want to be a jockey, Jay?
No, but my dad really did want to be a jockey, and he was just a little bit too big. And my dad could like set atop a horse like no human I'd ever seen, and still, and he could get more out of a horse than anybody I've ever known. We used to have these family races, and we had for the quarter horse people, they'll understand this. We had one of the 3 Bar sons for a stud, right? So we were breeding horses that were intended to go back to the tracks, and we'd have regular races back and forth. And there's some on video. My dad and another relative would race, and lo and behold, my dad would win. So they'd switch horses, and my dad would win again on the other horse, and then they'd switch to another set of horses.
Andrew, just so you know, that's an authentic Texas story right there. When it starts with we had one of the 3 Bar studs at our place, this is a true Texas story.
Right.
Well,
And it's
I know that the quarter horse, the quarter. I saw some quarter horse racing recently, actually, on obviously on a cable TV, but I was quite impressed with it, to be quite honest, because they're obviously not thoroughbreds, but they are bred for speed. And they very short distances as well, aren't they? They
like a quarter of a mile.
Quarter-mile tracks.
Yeah.
The quarter horse runs a quarter mile.
Turfway is where they have the quarter horse racing, isn't it? Turfway, I think.
Well, there's many quarter horse.
Yeah, there's a number of them.
But Remington in Oklahoma would kind of like be the epicenter.
Yeah. Ruidoso Downs is maybe the numerically where the most horses run, but Remington would be the place where I think the quarter horses. Yeah, that's like the Kentucky. Well, I wouldn't say it's a Kentucky Derby. It's for sure like the Preakness or Kentucky Derby. We're going to start a fight now.
Yeah,
Trent's going to get some bad. Trent's got. Really I just said something that made a whole bunch of people angry because I almost said Kentucky Derby about
nobody can argue that Remington is the epicenter, but when you go to the Kentucky Derby, I don't know.
Maybe not that, right? More like a Breeders' Cup.
You're not going to believe this, but there's a whole load of men coming towards me in uniforms. It's happening again.
I'd say they're suspecting you of overly increasing your carbon footprint. You're about to be arrested for CO2 fraud or something.
CO2 fraud. Yeah, that's going to be the next big thing.
I think back.
Hey, I do have some great news, guys. Speaking of CO2, we fight this carbon capture nonsense. I'm not opposed to carbon CO2 being used for a commodity. I'm opposed to putting it in a pipeline. I'm opposed to capturing it from the atmosphere. And there was a proposed permit in Morton County, North Dakota, which I've been railing on for a number of reasons. And it was announced on Thursday of last week. The permit to the Morton County Commissioners has been repealed or called back. So that's a win. We need to celebrate the wins as we also identify the problems that we have going forward.
Right. Though, it's interesting. So let's kind of break this up in little pieces, right? CO2 has value. And to the point that you made, it is a commodity that we can use and we can figure it out.
Without it, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even inside of all kinds of things that we do inside the United States, CO2 has a monetary value in it, and we should be able to trade it. And we can create systems that will easily produce more CO2 if we want to. It's possible for us to do that, right? There are some ways to break down methane that will produce a significant amount of CO2, and methane is something that we have. I don't think we have.
Why would you want to bury it then?
No. I don't want to bury it. That's exactly my point, because it has a value being used in other production systems, i.e., whether it be. So some people know this. I'm in the high tech greenhouse operations business as well, and we want CO2 in our systems. We purchase it.
Well, I know a guy that's in the same industry as you, that's just sold all his tomato farms in Spain, because he's concerned that he's not going to have access to CO2.
Right. And so the the interesting thing about it is even on on a site, like I looked at the plans for a site that would be 120 acres under glass in total,
Yeah,
right? That's over
yeah.
a very large land area, but 120 acres under glass, and it still can't really use a pipeline supply. I mean,
Very dangerous, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be
right.
dangerous?
And part of the reason is that you just wouldn't want to create that environment inside of a glass. I mean, you don't really want very many explosions in a glass building.
No,
Well,
Right?
you don't want one, let alone very many.
Yeah, right.
no.
And
And it's worth pointing out, Jay, that I assume your greenhouses are all at about 800 parts per million, which is almost double what we have in the atmosphere, and yet that gets
yeah.
left out of every equation.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
from what I understand, for tomatoes, it's 900 milligrams per square
well, so
centimeter.
you're so that is inside a closed atmosphere that you would elevate the CO2 level, right? But
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
this, the plant will absorb 100% of that excess. The plant, here's the interesting thing, right? This is where, for all the people that don't believe in God, I am one that does. Understand that some intelligent design created the genetic capacity for that plant to equalize out. If you add the extra CO2, the plant will equalize the air back to an optimum. And it's an optimum that supports a human walking by it. Not,
that
it's
to
not,
me, it's
it
not.
will,
It's also it's so profound. I give you a lot of credit for saying that, because it's all part of the cycle of life, isn't it? If you
it
produce
is,
more
right?
above
But
ground, it's obvious.
Nate, but the point being, if you actually look at this in a bigger, broader sense, and again, I'll probably you'll get some email about this and some comments as well, Trent. I'm sorry, but if you look, almost all of nature is designed so that human beings can also live with it. Not there are things that'll kill a human right in nature. I understand that, but when you look at it in the
Yeah,
big scheme of things, and
yeah,
so if you take a greenhouse and you fill it as full as you can make it with CO2, the tomato plants or cucumbers or whatever peppers that are in there will grow like mad for a certain period of time, but then they're producing basically oxygen as a byproduct of that growth process. And when they get to a certain point, then they will slow their growth. And the plants will do it no matter what you do. They will eventually stop and rest themselves and allow that atmosphere inside that building. You can artificially pump it full for a while, but you can't continue that. The plant will just stop growing if you do it for too long. You have to
yeah.
give it an
Speaking
opportunity.
speaking of stopping and resting themselves
Yeah.
for a period of time, that's
Oh,
exactly what we're going to do for 1 week with Jay Truitt, Andrew Henderson. I'm Trent Loos, as we have journeyed down the path connecting food producers to food consumers. All three of us remind you that all roads do lead to a CO-filled rural route. CO2 filled rural route.